I want to bring in now Duncan Levin. He is a former federal prosecutor and criminal defense attorney who has represented high-profile clients like Anna Delvey, Harvey Weinstein, and Claire Bronfman. Also joining me is Mike King, a 28-year veteran of law enforcement in Utah. He's also the co-chair of the FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program and former director of the Cold Case Unit. And John Muffler is a former U.S. Marshal who's escorted thousands of prisoners in transit and now owns a security consulting company. And John, I'm going to start with you on this one. I was a little surprised about the two stops that happened on this cross-country trip. I'm still trying to figure out if it is a coincidence or if this might have been, local authorities working with the feds, either to slow them down because they may have lost the tail or to see if they could get a better read on whether this was still the suspect they were following. Did you make anything of it other than coincidence?
Are we talking about when he got pulled over in the vehicle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two stops.
So, yeah, I think it's coincidental. However, I would say it wouldn't be. It's plausible that the FBI had asked the Indiana police officer or police to pull that vehicle over to confirm the identity of the driver. It's possible. I don't know that. I know that's being bandied about on social media and the internet, but so that's possible. I think it's very much more coincidental because it is a tactic that law enforcement does use in the event, they want to confirm somebody.
But what a weird tactic to pull him over twice within an hour. If I were Brian, I might have smelled a rat and started really trying to, hide my tracks. It's surprising. Duncan, what's the status now in terms of speed? How fast, now that they've taken him from the plane and probably, got him into booking at that little tiny jail that houses only about 42 prisoners or so? What's the status? How fast will they get him before a judge? How fast before those families can actually go into that courtroom and see the man who's accused of killing their kids?
I think we're going to probably see something tomorrow, if not within the next 48 hours. I mean, the next stop here is for him to get arraigned on these charges and for the probable cause affidavit to be both given to him and unsealed. It's possible that the defense has already gotten it and that it won't actually be unsealed until there's some sort of formal court. Obviously, there's no night court, so there'll probably be some kind of proceeding tomorrow, if not on Friday at the latest at this point. And I think it's highly likely that at that point, the probable cause affidavit is going to be unsealed and given to the public. And I think people should remember that not only are there rules about pretrial publicity and the lawyers won't be speaking much, the probable cause affidavit is going to be pretty bare bones. The prosecution does not want to lay out the entire case. They don't want to lay out all of the evidence. They're going to try to make this as bare bones as possible, just enough to tell everybody what the charges are, just enough to satisfy the judge, the court, that this is the right guy, and also to support his remand and continued detention in the jail facility. But they're not going to lay out the entire case. They don't want to give a roadmap to the defense at this point.
Yeah, no narrative of what happened in that house necessarily, but a lot more than we know at this point. At least some connection to this mystery name, Brian Kohberger. Heretofore, we'd never imagined a student in a PhD program in criminology at a neighboring university who seemed to have no connection. So at least we'll get something to take us to, a probable cause for an arrest. Mike, go back to the planes for a minute. That we saw this today, an airplane circling for 2 hours. Let me ask the control room if we can get that video up, because I am mesmerized by it. 2 hours of circling above the Kohberger's home. And make no mistake, that is exactly where the Kohberger's home is. And for 2 hours, you can see the other planes flying past, flying around. That one is there for a reason. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I wonder if that's just a drone that they put up to keep track of the area. I don't know that it would be a manned aircraft because, like you mentioned, Ashleigh, I think the sound would have alerted people to the presence of it. And we have drone capability now that can fly for hours. So I suspect that was providing surveillance, hopefully streaming down.
I thought the same thing, Mike. I thought the same thing. And then I thought, hold it. Drones aren't on flight trackers. Like, they're not necessarily, they're not necessarily going to be on these kinds of websites, are they?
Yeah, well, the larger drones will, because they need to be, depending on the airspace that they're occupying. And so we see those larger aircraft flying at much higher elevations, and that one circling, it's probably at a lower elevation, but still has to be certified. It still has to be reported to the FAA that it's going to be up and occupying that bit of airspace. And yeah, I'm not a drone expert, but I am a pilot, so I know that those things are flying around, and you have to worry about that level of airspace that they're in, and it's going to occupy a much lower space, above 400 feet.
You surprise me every time you're on. I didn't know you were a pilot. I had to come to you right out of the gate to ask that. Thank you for that. It's excellent information. But I find it even more fascinating that they had eyes on him like that from above for 2 hours late at night. You know, this is about 10 o'clock till midnight local time. And then it was about 6 hours later that the raid happened. Just so intriguing. Hey, Mike King, John Muffler, Duncan Levin, thank you, all three of you. We're going to have you all back for certain. Appreciate your wisdom. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.